definition around what consumer experience even means. What comes to mind for you? What do you think about when you think about the Anna Kay team delivering a very high-level consumer experience? How does that work in your world?
So I probably am cheating a little bit with my answer because my background before real estate was the consumer experience.
Okay.
Doesn't mean that I've perfected it in real estate by any stretch of the imagination, but when you ask me what does the consumer experience mean, it literally is what somebody out in the world begins to experience the moment that they know that we exist. Who is Anna Kalinsky? What is her brand? What is the Anna Kay Town team? And what do I know about them to be true? So now I'm finding these people online. So I'm like looking at content. I'm looking at what resources are available to me to get the things that I want. So it's not, from an experience standpoint, it's not just buying and selling houses. We would be cheating ourselves out of our entire industry if I just thought about the consumer when they're ready to buy or sell, or they raise their hand, they say, I'm ready to do this. So we have to think about how are we creating experiences that really give us a brand that is unique to how people do business in comparison to somebody else in the marketplace. What are they feeling when they're driving through in town with the people that they're working with? What information are we providing to them through the process? How often are they touched? What do they get milk and cookies after they pass due diligence? Like, these standards that we put in place create the entire experience for them such that when they're done, they're not actually done, because we continue to communicate with them and nurture that relationship so they're always inside of our brand.
It's so good. I think she's exactly right. And I think what you just heard was Anna, she gets it, right? She knows that people do business with people they like. I believe it's just that simple. And I don't think that that's going away anytime soon. And anybody who thinks it is, I would argue with you. But the consumer, I believe that they quantify likability by how much they trust the real estate agents that they're in business with. See, these two things in my mind are linked. There's a great diagram on this. Josh, if you could bring this up here. This is the trust triangle. This is from Harvard Business Review. And this gives the equation for trust. Now, I hear agents every day and they say, well, I don't know what script to use, or I don't know what to say. And sure, all of those things matter. But if you honor this triangle, it almost doesn't matter what you say. Because here's how this works. On the bottom left-hand corner, you see logic. This means that anybody that you're speaking with, they have to believe that you have some sort of logic that makes their life better. Once they believe that, that's a key part of the relationship. Then you have on the top authenticity. This means that whoever you're speaking with believes that they're experiencing the real you. I promise if they don't think they are, it won't matter what you say. And in the bottom right-hand corner, you have the word empathy. This means that they believe that you care about them. You see, friends, they have to believe that. Now I want you to think about your own personal relationships for a moment. And I would submit to you that if you've ever had an argument with a significant other or a business partner, it's usually because in that moment, one of those three things, logic, authenticity, or empathy, it was cracked. And you lost it. But you were able to rebuild it, and the relationship moves on. It's only when it shatters, when it breaks so irreparably that you can no longer ever consider putting it back together. And that's when we see like business breakups. And that's when relationship ends. Look at this next slide. I want you to see, and this is from the vision speech. By the way, tune in again on March 3rd. You're going to get the full thing here. Look at this. This is what was important to buyers. You have 21% that said honest and trustworthy, right? That we get that. Trust. They actually used the word. Then you have 18% that said experience. Another way to say I need to trust that you know what you're doing and that you have some logic. Then you see reputation. That's all about empathy. That's 15%. You add these together and you get 54%. Last time I checked, that's the majority. And what they're telling you is that trust is the thing that matters most. Now, this last slide, this is going to blow your mind. Show this, Josh. Here's the key on this. What you're now seeing here, these bars, these represent the number of consumers in a percentage that chose to do business with a real estate agent, a trusted fiduciary. Now, look at this yellow line that's running through it. These are Zillow unique visitors in the million with an M. What's your takeaway? Put it in the chat log right now. What's your takeaway from this illustration? I'll tell you what mine is, Josh. Mine is that it doesn't matter how many eyeballs go somewhere to see pictures of houses. In the end, the consumer wants their fiduciary trusted, standing side by side with them at the center of the transaction.
When we look at this graph, what stands out to me is if you look at 2009, when we're tracking this data, 85% of consumers chose to work with an agent. And then every year since then, as Zillow's traffic has grown, so did consumers choosing to use an agent. I think the way to think about this from an analogy, let's go back to the swimming pool. Cannonball comes in, disruption, waves happen, and those waves pushed people with all of the confusion, all the data, all the choice, all the disruption, push people right into the arms of a fiduciary that could help them with their transaction. The data is pretty clear on this, which goes back to this idea of a personalized experience. When you can get in control of your lead generation, and then you can then build an experience where you maintain the fiduciary relationship, all the disruptions can actually help you get more market share. That's what the last 10 years tells us. And there's a great case study out of Houston that proves this point perfectly. Houston Association of Realtors went back in the 90s and they asked a fundamental question. Where's this all going and how do we build a plan? And in that moment, they decided to go from HAR, Houston Association of Realtors, to HAR.com now, homes and rentals. They built billboards, a marketing campaign, and they went through a trying and challenging journey over several years to take control of their destiny and journey to make sure they had a plan to build a predictable business with a world-class experience. And they're the only large metropolitan area in the country in which Zillow is not number one in market share. In fact, they are. Listen to their story. You put the flag on the ground, and then some of your members are like, yes, let's do this, let's take the hill. Some of your members were over my dead body. You were experimenting with them, trying new things, and a lot of them were creating a lot of energy when you got it right and when you got it wrong. And that was a very interesting time. But what I hear you saying is, because you were first and because you were brave, as you just said, you stood your ground, you knew this was the path forward, you guys have gotten a major success by going through that together. And you guys are now, can you talk about how effective Zillow has been in Houston, for instance? I know because you guys look at that a lot. Has Zillow been as effective in Houston as they've been in other cities in the country because of that journey you went on?
Zillow is very effective in Houston. We're a little bit ahead of them. I wouldn't say we're light years ahead of them, but we're ahead of them. And so we're proud to be the only market, anywhere in the country, Zillow is now number one.
What they knew then is what we know now is even more true, which is getting in front of a plan, controlling lead generation, and then mastering lead conversion with a world-class consumer experience. That's the name of the game. And people are now more open to those new experiences than ever before. On behalf of Keller Williams, all the associates in Houston, and all of our Keller Williams family, thank you, Bob, for everything you've done for realtors and your partners at Houston Association of Realtors.
Yeah, if you're on there, pound that heart button. If you talk about a protector and a friend to the realtor.
There's never been a time when more consumers are willing to try a new experience. And so there's never been a better time for us to go imagine and reinvent that experience. We all partner with the top companies like Google. Let's go back to MegaCamp, where we spoke to Dan at Google specifically about this and why now is the best time to reimagine your consumer experience. One of the other data sets that I found so fascinating when we were talking is you guys are seeing across all the data sets that you guys have, more than half the consumers are choosing new brands right now. It's almost like the world got a reset button, and everything, all the decisions that we used to make and all the normal status quo was so disrupted. There's so much pattern disruption, the appetite to try new things around who's providing the best alternative experiences right now. The appetite to try new brands or new companies or new people is higher than it's ever been. Can you talk a little bit about what you're seeing there?
Yes, over half, I think 54% of consumers told us that over this time they have used a company or brand that they had not done business with before. And so think about some practical applications. If you have a need for a plumber to come to your home, maybe you had a plumber you've worked with in the past that you've been comfortable with, but they don't have a process in place where it's contactless, where you can pay online, where you won't have to talk to someone or really interact with someone. You're going to choose a different plumber for now, right? That's going to make you feel safe, that's set up to service you the way you want to be in this environment. And so there's an opportunity there if you have leaned in and you're prepared for this accelerated shift to digital to earn new customers. That said, the complementary statistic we saw was of those 54% of consumers, 80% of them told us they're not necessarily going to continue to use this new company down the road. So it's an opportunity, but there's still an effort you have to make for retention.
That was eye-opening to me, because what that told me was people are open to trying out a new company with a new offering, but for whatever reason, a majority of those companies weren't creating enough value in that new experience to gain a customer. They were only getting a transaction. And so the real opportunity here is to make sure you have the new offering, you're leaning into the market of the moment, you're creating the value that consumers need, and you're able to talk to the consumer how they want to be talked to, where they want to be spoken to, and the way they want to be spoken to. And that then creating a new complete customer value in that new world order that makes sure they still stay a customer for life.
That's the opportunity and the challenge.
Okay. Let's take a second and just recap where we've gone on this journey today so far. First, we identified that Zillow bought showing time to try to get into a consumer experience and potentially try to become more like a rainmaker. But then we saw data that said maybe they're actually seeing that you guys were dominating the showing space and you were disrupting them, and they were trying to compete with you. As we heard out of Bright, you 44% more showings and sold homes faster for the Keller Williams family. That then led us into the conversation around how do we get in control of our own solution. And that was all around lead generation and a world-class experience. And we heard Instagram and Facebook say, we already got machine learning that you won't ever see with your lying eyes, for instance, but they can actually prove and they get you better leads at higher volume with no markup. And that's how it's gone from $12 to $1 per lead for us, saving Keller Williams agents over $28 million. And then the second part of this to build a real solution is have a world-class experience. So that's the speed dating version of where we are now, talking about why building a world-class experience now is the second lever we have to pull into controlling this plan. So we're going to solve 3 problems today: world-class experience, lead generation, and lead conversion. All the data that we saw earlier, going back from 2009, proves if we do those 3 things at a high level, we can't be disrupted. We can't be beaten. So the first thing we need to ask ourselves is, what is a world-class experience? What does that mean? How do I do that? The first thing that you need to do is understand that there's 3 levers: unique insights, unique access, and unique services. Those are the only 3 real levers you can pull to create that consumer experience. Once you deliver that world-class experience and you pull those levers at the highest volume, that's when something magic happens. That's when you have a unique relationship. Let me give you an example outside of real estate. Let's go to law and talk about being an attorney. Whether you're starting a business or filing for a patent, you're going to want to go and have a consultation and tell them about what you're trying to do. And in that first conversation, they're not going to talk a whole lot about them. They're going to start telling you about the process, the journey. They're going to make you smarter. They're going to give you unique insights with their expertise to give you comfort that they're the solution to your problem. That's no different than our buyer consultation or listing presentation. And then from there, they're going to start giving you unique access. If you're trying to file a patent, they're going to give you patent review, case law, pending patents. If you're going and starting a business, they're going to give you C Corp filings, trademark issues, all those types of things. They're going to use their access to things like the bar and litigation and opinions to inform you and build out a journey and a consumer experience that works for you. That's no different than we have access to brokerages and MLSs and all types of things. And then they're going to take all of that and curate it into unique services just for you. If I'm filing a business, I'm not going to see the menu for patents. If I'm filing a patent, they're not going to see the menu for starting a business. They're going to make sure that my customer experience is perfectly curated for me. And when all of those things happen with that attorney, in that moment, they go from the attorney, they go to my attorney. And they now have a customer for life.
And that's that powerful thing that we're all looking for. I even love the analogy. I watch a ton of Law of Order. Everybody knows this. And in that analogy, if Stabler ever shows up at your house, or Benson, or any of the crew, what you never see them say is, "Get me any attorney, regardless." They yell, usually, "Get me my attorney." And is it any different for you out there in the real estate multiverse? It isn't. You don't want someone, when they want to see a house, yell, "Get me any realtor." You want them to say, "Get me my realtor." Insert your name right there. And that's when it all happens.
The best experience is always when it's focusing on the customer, where they are, what they need, and talking to them how they want to be spoken to, not where we are and what we want to do. Ensuring we're creating real insights, real access, and unique services at that time is how we win. No difference in the patent business example or luxury first-time home buyer. We've got to meet the customer where they are and make sure we're solving their problems. When we do that, we win.
Yeah, and the challenge is the same across the entire industry. Whether you're selling $20,000 homes or $20 million houses, you still only have those levers, and the end game is the same, which is create enough trust and likability, like we spoke about earlier, in the consumer's mind, such that they want you to shepherd them through the process.
And as your partners at Keller Williams, it's our job as your partner to make sure you're armed with insights and trends so you know how to create that world-class experience in the future and what trends are going to be happening so we can capitalize on that. Let's go back to MegaCamp, where we sat down with Dan from Google, where we predicted what we thought we would see in Q4 and Q1. And this will maybe help us understand where we are so that we can understand where we're going.
40% of respondents told us right now that they're in market for a home. The breakdown there is 26% of folks told us that they're seriously in market. 20% told us that they're